Good morning and welcome to the third webinar that we've put on here at Get Carter Productions. This one is in relation to the licensing of popular music, or as we are calling this one, Graham, the inside track. You've all seen me before on here, but it's the first time that it's Graham's debut appearance. Graham is our senior lead creative here at Get Carter Productions, and he has been at the forefront of all things licensing of famous tracks and the syncing of famous tracks for the last 20 years. So if there's anything to know about licensing a famous track, shortcut or not, Graham Bridgewood knows it. So hence why he's on. So we're going to cover a few things off today. We're going to cover off the mechanics of it, how it all works. We're going to cover off the meaning, how Graham and the team here get to where they get to with a famous track, and then the final M, the money. We will be able to give you an indication of cost, and that will be towards the end. But before we start, I like a stat. You all know I like a stat, and the stat that's on your screen now shows you that if you use a famous piece of music versus a library or stroke non-famous piece of music, you will see a 20% increase in the emotional recall of your message, as well as the attention of your message. And that is from Nielsen. Okay, that's not me making that up. That is from Nielsen. So that's the first and the last stat, which I suppose would increase engagement, potentially sales, and potentially profitability. Okay, before we get into the mechanics, Graham, I've mentioned it. It's hard to believe you've been doing it for 20 odd years. What's changed? What has the industry changed in relation to famous music and syncing?
Well, the industry's changed dramatically altogether, and so syncing has changed a lot. I mean, back then when the last piece of music that you played there, the You Can't Touch This, that was the first piece that I licensed. We got a fantastic MC Hammer impersonator from California. We recorded him. He knew the rap pretty much all the way through. It was fantastic. So it was a great first experience. But yeah, it's changed dramatically on the syncing point of view, because back in those days, the physical sales of CDs, etc., made up most of what the record industry was making. That's flipped on its head. It's now streaming. They're not making money out of the physical sales, so they're looking for other options. And they've turned on to this. You'll hear a lot more famous music on ads.
Yes, definitely.
Part of that is just the support that's now in place. So you would have one point of contact if you were lucky. Back at 20 years ago. Now there's whole departments that are there to support inquiries and help the flow of getting the music through for clients. So definitely better outcomes, more successful outcomes for clients, because there's that support there.
So what are the things that we've got? Some agencies on the call, we've got some direct clients on the call. What are the things that people need to consider when they think, we might look at a piece of famous music for our marketing, our brand, our campaign, our project? What are the things that they need to consider? Up front?
You need the budget. You need to allocate budget. Obviously, that involves us getting a price for you, but there will be an uplift in the budget needed, or reapportioning the budget. The main thing, though, I would say is if you're going to go down this road, it's about making the most of the opportunity. So getting as much bang for your buck. So we look after radio and audio for people, but will it fit for your TV, cinema, social, online? How can you maximise the opportunity to get the consistency throughout and just play on the strength of what you're doing, getting as many ears hearing it.
And in relation to that, then, we've touched on budget there. What are things that we do in and around the mechanics? What are the actual, I suppose I might class it as the boring bit. I don't actually think it is boring, but what's the mechanics of doing it? So somebody says, Graham, we've thought about a track, it might be this one. We obviously have a discussion around whether we thought it was right and whether it fit in and everything, but what actually is the process?
Well, so sometimes the client will come to us with an idea of a track. Sometimes we're involved right from the briefing stage, and so we'll come up with the ideas. Then it's a case of making contact with the record companies. So there's two sides to it. There's the publishing side, and then there's the master side. So I'll just briefly explain how that works. So the example I always give is Oasis Wonderwall. That's an easy one to explain it, because as everybody knows, Noel Gallagher wrote 99% of Oasis songs. And so say you've got a track of mine and it's Wonderwall, but you want to re-record it. You might want to do a really intimate acoustic version of it, or you might want a choir singing it, for it to sound huge. So you want to re-record it, so you need to get the rights to use the composition. That's the publishing side of it. So you would contact the publishing house that represents Noel Gallagher. You would ask for a quote, and then you go through the process, and then you would ask for the permission from Noel to use that composition, and tell them what you're going to do with it. They agree, off you go, re-record it. The other side of things is you might want to use the original, so that involves, yes, you need the composition rights, you need to license the composition rights, but then you also need to speak to, it'll be another record company, to get the master use rights. So that is to pay the performers on the track. So Wonderwall, again, you would then be paying Noel, who played guitar on it, Liam singing, Bonehead, etc., and go through the band. So that's the way the two sides work. Depending on the campaign, you might need to do both. You might need to just do one.
Graham, you just made that sound very straightforward and rather simple. Is it? Or how complicated can it be? And what are the pitfalls?
It's can be very time consuming. It can get very complicated, especially we've had a few lately where on seems particularly modern tracks where there are lots and lots of writers involved. So even if you just want the publishing, we had one recently where there was 6 writers, I think, on there, all represented by different record companies. So those are 6 people that you've got to get in touch with, negotiate with, make sure everybody's happy, and that they're all that there's a point of happiness that runs throughout. Because you might have the person who came up with the idea, wrote the song, they might be the singer, but then you've got producers. They often get writing credits now. There might be a rapper stuck in there as well. They'll have a different record company, they've got a writing credit, etc. It can get quite complicated, very time consuming, but thankfully we take all that pain away for the client, and we do all that side.
And I think at this point we do need to point out that even when you've spoken to the management company and got agreement in principle, what can go wrong even after agreement in principle?
I know what you're getting at there, and we always put on any quotes that this quote is subject to artist/management approval. So as we go through the stages, so we come up with the ideas, pitch them to the client, they love them, we get a price is right. It's at that stage, that's the key point, where we are then asking to go to the actual artist or their management for approval of the use. It's quite good. It's quite exciting, because sometimes it does actually go to the artist. We had one a couple of years ago where Nile Rodgers, who's loved in here, he's actually going through, who wants to use his music, and he's ticking them off, and we got a tick from him, and so that's quite good to know that those people are involved. But the important thing is that until you get to that stage, it's like having the board up outside your house that says sold, subject to contract. You've got to be careful.
And examples of that, because how quirky it can be, and I think this is the point we want to make.
I mean,
product. Individuals.
It's nowadays that there aren't a lot of times that we get turned down because there's all that support network, and the record companies now can give you more of a steer on actually, right at the early stage, that's a no-go, or this is licensed exclusively for something else. But a couple recently, we had a big national campaign where they were holding out for an international campaign, where somebody wanted exclusive rights, so they can't give permission here because they would potentially lose all of that.
But unfortunately, they did give the permission up front in relation to agreement in principle. So we can then go down a route with the client, and then it's right at the end where and the publishers didn't know it was the artist management company that said, "Oh no, we're waiting for somebody else."
And then we had another one quite recently where we had two writers who'd subsequently had a massive fallout, and one of them agreed, and the other one didn't want that guy to have any money, and so he refused use out of spite.
Cut his own nose up to spite his face. But there you go.
It is very rare that would happen, and the indications that we get up front from the record companies and publishing houses give us a good indication sometimes before we've even pitched an idea to a client. So
and we may well be asked, and so don't be worried if we do ask you, what are your corporate social responsibility guidelines in your companies, because sometimes the artists and the publishers want to know this, because
they want to know what they're
buying into.
Their sound is being used for.
Okie doke. That's the mechanics. Graham did make that all sound very simple. It's not, and it is exceedingly time consuming. So that's it. Now the fun bit. The kind of the meaning. You're going to run us through three examples, three mini case studies of famous tracks that we've licensed and why, and give us the meaning. So let's talk about the tunes, Graham.
So when we're coming up with the ideas, it is all about the meaning. The track has got to connect with the brand and connect with the audience. There's like a loop going on here. It's got to mean something, and the stronger the meaning, the better. So I've got three examples to play and just do a little explanation of why we picked those particular tracks for the particular client. So the first one is a track that we licensed for Tool Station. So we'll just give you a quick play now. So that was a track that we used for Tool Station a few years ago. They used it for a couple of years. When we were coming up with the ideas, this was a track that just perfectly fit for their demographic. That was mostly male, mostly in the trade. When that track was out, they would have a lot of their audience, a lot of their customers would have been their teens, early 20s. It would remind them of times when they were going out, when they were really free. So that real positive attachment to it. And there was the nostalgia element, which was really strong. We were talking about it before about the nostalgia thing, and it's kind of the reason why Top 10 at 10's still one of the biggest parts of the day for radio. So but the other side of this was that not just it fit in for the demographic, but it fit for what the client was wanting to achieve with their branding. So the message in the lyrics about being hard to beat, they weren't the biggest, or they aren't the biggest, and not always the cheapest, but that's what they were trying to be, hard to beat. So that fit perfectly for them. The next one is a track that we licensed for Bristol Street Motors, which is actually on air now, up and down the country on the airwaves. Sounding great, yeah. Let's give you a play of that. So that's Fleur East sax, and the client does a lot of regional advertising, but also a lot of national advertising in the TV, as well as the radio and the digital audio, and they were looking for something that would connect their 200 plus dealerships together. So whether it was regional or a national message, something that would connect, and they specifically didn't want anything that featured lyrics. They just wanted a track that could sit behind the messaging and just carry the atmosphere and the feeling that they wanted to get across. Super positive. It's got a great celebratory feel to it with the horns. So it just fit perfectly, and also it's a very mainstream track. So that was a perfect fit for them, and you'll hear it on the radio today if you tune in up and down the country.
And just a quick one, just to point out, because people probably didn't realise, but both of those were re-records as opposed to the original.
Yes, they're both re-recorded by Mark Thompson here in this studio, and absolutely 100% re-records. Very, very, very close.
Yes.
The next one is actually the original
That's right.
track, and this was a one we licensed for Peter Vardy. So I'll give you a quick blast of this. So, Giant was massive at the time we licensed this, no pun intended, but we licensed this a few years ago for Peter Vardy. It did two totally separate jobs for them that the client loved. Firstly, it was to support their what was previously called the Mega Sale, like a New Year's sale, which we rebranded as the Giant Sale because when we came up with the idea. But also, they're a younger and smaller company than a lot of their competitors, and they wanted to make a big statement about themselves, make themselves sound bigger than they were, sort of hijack the perception of their brand. This so not only supporting the Giant Sale but also giving them that really big sound. So did two jobs for them,
and that tied in with the overall branding strategy that they had at the time, the Scottish Rugby Union shirt sponsorship, all that kind of stuff.
Exactly. It fit into that. Those are the three examples.
Good, thank you for that, Graham. The fun bit. Now, the bit that everybody's been waiting for. Mechanics, great. Meaning, understand. How much does it all cost, Graham?
Right. I'll tell you that
no copping out.
I won't. No two prices I've ever had, or that we've ever had, are the same. It all depends on, like we mentioned before, are you using it on the cinema, TV, radio, digital audio, online, etc.? Is it regional or is it UK wide? And also the profile of the track, profile of the artist. All of these factors go into the pot, and the price comes out. But we can give you, so every campaign's different, but we can give you a couple of prices to give you an idea. I would pick out a regional campaign. If you were doing regional radio and digital audio, maybe it's in a region like Scotland, and you wanted to use a track that you were going to re-record, so publishing only, for 12 months, that would cost circa 30,000. If you then go into national coverage, 12 months again, similar profile track, but then maybe you've got TV, cinema, online, you add all of those things in there, I think you'd be looking at sort of circa 100. Obviously, it all depends on the
100,000, Graham.
Yes,
not £100.
100,000, yeah. It all depends on the track. The thing is, the great thing is that it costs nothing for us to come up with the ideas, go and actually get a price for you. We can speak to the publishing houses. You can decide whether it's right for you.
And I think, again, from the agreement stage and the negotiation stage, the earlier that we're involved, the better, because we've seen it before, where people come up with the idea, we're then furnished with the idea, or even, go and find out in relation to the mechanics, and artwork design's already being done, and until you've got that artist approval, and I keep going back to it, but we've seen it.
Definitely best to go early, and that gives you the opportunity to get further along the line and get to that point where you go, right, we've got the track, now let's build a whole campaign, because obviously it's not just audio that's involved in campaigns, you've got all the other sides of it as well that have to be factored in. But going early allows you to get that permission, and then work everything else around it. Make sure that you've got the permission to go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Graham, thanks very much. So we've covered off mechanics, straightforward, complications of the meaning, how you and the brains of the operation take a track and utilise it, and then a gauge on costings. So if for everybody on the call, thanks very much.
No problem.
If you want to take this any further, you've got any questions, please email me. As per everything, there will be a link sent to everybody, so you can have all of this information again. And if you've got any questions at all, just send them to me and I'll ask Graham for the answers. So thanks very much for joining us on this one. And the next one will be circa 3 months' time, and there's going to be a guest outside of Get Carter Productions here, but we'll just tease you with that, and we'll more of that shortly. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye.